For another episode of the Coming Soon podcast with Spider.
Hello, everybody. Spider here, Coming Soon podcast. Of course, coming to you once again here in Texas. My guest, Jonathan Kelly, my man, you are all the way across the pond, bro. You're out there in the UK. And thank you. Thank you for waiting up. I mean, I know it's late in the evening for you guys. But yeah, I have you on here, man. And of course, I've had the privilege of getting a lot of, authors, publishers, just writers in general just coming on here. And you're one of them, man. So, I mean, you sent me a link, like I mentioned earlier, I was able to read through it. And I'm curious to see where that comes from because, of course, I mean, I don't know if all your writing as far as when you started is pretty much the same. But this book that you sent me is digital and it's a game book, man. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm probably the world's laziest writer. I was good at writing when I was at school. I won some competitions, and my English grades were always excellent. It was my best subject. And people always used to say to me, "Oh, you should write more. You should write more." And I'm like, "Yeah, I should, but I don't." There was always something else more exciting to do. So I've always created stories in my head, and I love the idea of creating like something different. I always like to, something that inspires me is when it's something I think hasn't been done before. Or it's a little twist on something. And so I had all these ideas for short stories. I'd start writing them. I wouldn't finish them. And yeah, that went on for like 30 years. I did do some writing in that time. I used to write film reviews for my local paper. I wrote for a website called Slasherama, which was a good horror film review site for a while. Unfortunately, that went it kind of went bust, I guess, or stopped being online. Yeah, so I was getting some opportunities, but when COVID hit, I basically had nothing to do because I was furloughed in the UK. If you were put in a high risk group, you got furloughed, which meant you couldn't work. It wasn't even a choice. You weren't allowed to.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of time on my hands, and I thought, well, I really should do some writing now. And yeah, so I kind of had an idea for a game book, which was an adult game book.
Yeah.
And then my friend's daughter, she created some monsters. She made her own kind of playing cards with monsters and did some drawings for them. And I thought, well, maybe it would be better to do this book as a kid's book, and I could put some of her monsters in the book.
Yeah.
And that really helped me because I was writing it for her. I wasn't writing it for myself. And so I had like a definite desire to finish it. Yeah. And yeah, the game book process is not easy. It's probably one of the hardest things you can choose to write, just in terms of how difficult it is to follow all the strands and make it like flow and make sense. So it was a learning curve. I was like, why didn't I just write a normal book? But the other aspect of it was I was kind of well known in the game book community only at that point because I was selling books. My dad was a book dealer, so he had a book shop when I was younger. So I was always going to car boot sales, junk sales, and buying books, and that wheeler dealer kind of aspect of it. Finding something cheap and then selling it because you knew it was valuable was always kind of like I'd done that all my life. So within the game book community, I was well known, and I thought, well, this is a good fit. So that was the start of it. And now 4 books later, I'm still doing it.
No, you see, and I mean, I enjoyed it, and the fact that you said it was a kiss book, now I'm kind of confused because I'm like, dude, I couldn't even keep up with it, man. So that was pretty. It's like a brain teaser, a mind teaser, I guess. Like I said, I mean, it kind of led you back and forth. I mean, it was a great format. I enjoyed it. I said, okay, you know what? And the only thing, let me ask you this, because it's only available on digital format.
Well, yeah, I'm doing a Kickstarter at the moment for the latest one, and you can look that up on Kickstarter if you search Karnath Tath, Karnafthath. It's got a longer title, but I only sell digitally because I really value paper books. Like I say, my dad was a book dealer, so I want to encourage people to buy my books on the Kickstarter. Right. But I appreciate that people if they miss the Kickstarter, and that's entirely likely,
Right.
that they might want to come along later on. And I don't keep stocks of books lying around the house on off chance. So digital is a good platform to reach people, and some people obviously just like digital only. But yeah, with I just want to clarify: the book I sent you is not a kid's book. That's my second book. That was my adult's book, and
Oh, okay.
yeah. So the first one was a fantasy book, and that
Right.
was, like I say, inspired from my friend's daughter. This one that you're reading, Only the Dead Will Hear Your Screams,
Yeah.
is pure horror, and that's 18 rated, adults only.
No, okay. I was gonna say, because this is the book itself. I mean, I was
Yep,
able to
that's
see
it.
the image, and yeah, man. Because I mean, I read it, and I was at work on my break time, right, going through it, and but yeah, man, it was great. I mean, I was, it did have you back and forth. I mean, telling you back to page 15. I mean, it followed through pretty well. I mean, it kept me going. It's like I tell people, like if I'm watching the movie and I lose interest, like it's bad, dude. Like I stick through it, but it's one of those, like. But this book did get my attention, and it kept me, having to wait and see what's gonna happen next, because I mean it was a game book, so of course, it's you gotta throw the dice and see where it goes, man.
Yeah, it's just, if you're not used to reading them, then they can be a little bit of a shock to the system. Like I say, I grew up reading them. This is one of my childhood copies, Choose
Right.
Your Own Adventure, which most of us read when we were kids, and they're still publishing these today. These are still selling; they're still popular. And with an adult book, you have to try and find the balance, because it's still quite. I don't want to say it's childish, but it's a simplistic kind of form. But then there's people, there are better game book writers out there than me who have made it, much more complicated and challenging. And I consider my books mid-level. I don't think they're super difficult, but for me, one of the fun things with a game book is obviously if you die, I think I write a good death scene. So there's lots of weird ways you can meet a sticky end in this one, the one you're reading. And yeah, that's part of the fun of the game book, because very few people will ever read one and just go all the way through in one go and complete it. And part of the fun, part of the fun is making
No,
mistakes.
you see, and the thing about it too, I was gonna say was, I mean, I read straight through it, and I read it like a book. So I mean, I was looking at where it was sending me, and I was throwing the coin, I guess you can say, and going, it was sending me all over the place. But the one thing about it was, it got me thinking, and I'm like, man, I could read this book like 4 or 5 times, and I'm gonna have different views, different things happen. So that's the great part, because you can always go back to that book and then keep going.
Yeah. So with this one, this is my previous book, The Green Apocalypse. This is a science fiction horror book. And with this one, you investigate an environmental cult. And I deliberately wrote it so you could play it in lots of different ways. So you can join the cult and side with them. You can fight against the cult and try and take them down.
Oh,
And
damn.
then there's other avenues that are kind of secret that you might not even find, but they're there if you look for them, that go in a completely different direction. And yeah, a good game book, you should be able to read it 3 times at least and go a different way each time. Some of the stuff will be the same, but the end result and the choices you make should impact what happens later on. So if you do something right at the start of the book, then that might shut off one whole ending. There's no way that you're going to be able to get to that if you've done that thing at the start. I like to make jokes in my books, and in my first book, one of the first things you do is you ride your horse, and if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you just fall off a cliff and die. And literally, you could be reading the book, and that's you're dead within
That's it.
one page. Because to me that's funny. I think that's kind of like kind of saying what a game book is. Like pay attention, concentrate. You got to put your mind to it to be successful.
No, you see, and I like that, because I mean it's kind of like an arcade game. You put a quarter, you can play for an hour, you can play for 5 seconds. You just never know, man. So
Yeah.
it depends on what move you make and where you go. But but yeah, man. It was definitely entertaining, dude. I kept up with it. I keep telling people, at work we do have a book club that it hasn't gone anywhere yet. Like people are still kind of back and forth as far as what they're reading. We're working on this relaxation room that we have set up there, and once that's done, that's going to be our space, like to go and just unwind and put some headsets on. I think the whole concept is for people to just go and be able to unwind and just take a little mental break from work and then go back. But that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, because yeah, it's like with these books or with the videos, the fact that you sent me the link. I can put my headset on and I won't bother nobody, but I can read through it and just keep going. But yeah, man. But of course, when you started this, you said, your dad used to be a book dealer. So, what were you doing back then? Were you writing as a kid growing up?
Yeah, I was writing just because I was in school, and a lot of the exercises were writing stories and stuff. I used to do theater, so I used to write theater sketches, comedy sketches. I was in a comedy group, doing amateur, kind of like shows. So I've always been creative, but I won't lie, I'm just lazy. And the great thing about Kickstarters is X amount of people put their faith in you up front,
Yeah.
and they pay you, and you have to deliver. And unfortunately, Kickstarters get a bad reputation because some people take advantage of that system.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you're like me, the only bad experience that I ever had with a Kickstarter in terms of losing money was I backed Dario Argento's film The Sandman. Now I know you know who Dario Argento is, but
Yeah.
you might not have heard of The Sandman, which was this
No.
Indiegogo project. And basically these so-called producers said, right, we're going to make Dario Argento's next film. It was going to star Iggy Pop in the lead role. And it was a really, kind of like professional campaign. And I just bought a blue DVD at the time.
Right.
I think it was like $25 with the postage. And they just stole everybody's money. They didn't just fail in their campaign. They just didn't communicate. They didn't, tell
Yeah.
people what was going on. They just ran off, disappeared. So
Uh,
when Kickstarters go wrong, they're terrible, and they put people off, and people
Yeah.
hear horror stories. But for someone like me, it's the only way I can get these books out. I can't afford to go self-publish professional books up front and sell them.
right.
There's not really a huge game books are still in the market professionally, but
Right.
they're limited. There's not many of them, and they tend to be big name authors who are established in the field, have been around for 40 years. So Kickstarter is the only way I can produce books like this. And there's a market for it because I've done 3 successful Kickstarters. I've just
Yeah.
funded my 4th one. But the bottom line is yeah, it's a faith-based system.
Yeah.
You have to put your faith in someone to produce something further down the line. And that scares some people, but it shouldn't, because like I did a post on Facebook recently. Bottom line is, do your research, read
Yeah.
about people, read their feedback.
What they've done.
Yeah, and then you know who you can trust.
No, and I was gonna say that too, because I've jumped on the few Indiegogo and there's still a few. I think it's been close to over a year, man, and they're still making the film. They keep posting as far as updates and so yeah, there's no say on that because there's no date on it. There's no like, hey, it's gonna be done in 2 months, 3 months. It's just so but yeah, I've heard horror stories when it comes to people doing Indiegogo campaigns and people just taking money and that's it. They just disappear. But I think the community, it's big when it comes to movies and writing books, but at the same time the community is pretty small. Like you can, like you said, do your research. If you put people's names up there, they'll pop up and you'll see like
Yeah.
as far as what's as far as do's and don'ts. And unfortunately there are scammers out there, but it's not everybody. There's a lot of great people out there.
And then the bottom line, there's scammers everywhere. There's scammers
Yeah.
in garages. There's scammers in banks. It's just life. It's human life. It's human experience. And I don't want to be cynical. And I always try and promote a positive message.
Yeah.
And because of that experience with that Kickstarter, I'm the best person to be doing a Kickstarter because I want to make it work. And I've done it. Each of my books, even though they're I don't write my books in advance. which is a kind of inherent risk, I suppose, because I could, get knocked over by a bus tomorrow. But the bottom line is each of my books I've delivered on time. I've set a timeline that I know the artist can do the art, and I can write the book and get it printed. And so, yeah, I've done it 3 times and I've met my commitment every time. So,
Nice.
I've got a track record now, which is good.
Right.
It's difficult when you're starting out, because, if you've not done one before, that's hard work.
No, for sure, man. And of course, man. Well, let me ask you, and I mean, not to get away from the subject at all, but I mean, being in the UK, I mean, I've never been out there, man. I mean, I grew up here in Texas, and I've traveled throughout the states. I've lived in a few, but how's life out there when it comes to art? Because I mean, like for example, like here in San Antonio, I mean, we have a hard events just about every weekend. There's always something going on. There's a lot going on here locally, but when it comes to books, I mean, they're out there. There's a few vendors that set up books and have bookstores, and but they're just not as big. So how is everything out there in the UK for you guys?
Well, we're a much smaller country, but everything seems to be kind of like based in the big cities. So there's an amazing horror film festival that I used to go to called Fright Fest in London. That's like a 5-day festival. They show premieres, they get all the stars over. So there's great stuff happening. It's funny that you're from Texas, because I was supposed to be going to Texas in 2002. I was doing a round the world trip, and I wanted to go to Texas because I wanted to go to the Alamo Draft House.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which and famous cinema, and they do lots of cool stuff. Yeah. And unfortunately, because of 9/11, I kind of got spooked a little, and I kind of shut down my flights. So I still traveled the world, but I limited where I went, and I stayed longer in places rather than going to more places.
Right.
I actually didn't end up going to Texas, and I still regret that now, because I would have loved to have gone, but maybe one day. But no, the UK scene is good. I would say it's thriving in the sense of there's a definite, horror loving community, in films, in, books. But yeah, it's for where I live, which is in the south of the country, it's a little bit more difficult to get to some of these, big events, right. Because they're mainly in London, Manchester, kind of those big cities.
No, you see, and you mentioned as far as Texas being, I guess, I mean, compared to the UK, I've never really looked at that, but I mean, I know Texas itself is big. I mean, it takes a whole day to drive out of here from one side to the other. It's a big state, and I always tell people, because there was a survey, and it's the same distance to drive from here in San Antonio, where I'm at, to El Paso, than compared to driving from El Paso to Las Vegas, which is going through like 4 states, bro. And I'm like, and then I've done that drive. So yeah, it's true, man. It's just, it takes, like my first road trip outside the state, we went to Florida, and I'm like driving and driving and driving. And I was like, man, when the heck are we gonna get out of Texas, man? Like, it was a long drive, bro. And then like once we got out of Texas, everything else was right there. Like went through, Louisiana, cut through, Alabama, and just kept going. But yeah, I mean, as far as the state itself, it's gotten bigger. I mean, here locally, we got just about everybody from California has moved out here because of the not so much life, but taxes and cost of living, and but San Antonio, I mean, we got a lot of great people that moved over here, and that's one of the things that I like, is that there's a lot. It kind of, it's like one of those, like if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't be experiencing other things, because of the fact that they brought back talent and brought back, whether they're actors, writers, photographers. But I see it out there now, and they're collaborating with local companies, and so it's moving. It's a great thing. I mean, it's just they're planted here, and for the most part, I don't think anybody's going back. But while they're here, definitely enjoy it, man.
Yeah, I just reminded me of a funny story, because when I was in Chicago on that round the world trip, I met a girl, and she said that she'd driven 8 hours to get to Chicago, and that just like blew my mind, because in England, no one would ever drive 8 hours to get somewhere. Like if you drive 3 hours, you think you've gone a massive distance, and that's enough for the day. But yeah, I was amazed at her. It was like she was very nonchalant about it. It was like, oh yeah, that's nothing. 8 hours is nothing. I was like, man, we could get from the tip of the bottom of England all the way to Scotland at the top of the country in 8 hours. I mean, you'd be knackered, but you could do it. But, yeah. I mean, it's Texas is famous for its yeah. I mean, that's how I knew about the Alamo Draft House and what they were doing there. And that wasn't the only reason I wanted to go there. Of course, obviously, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a bit of a
Oh yes, you see, and
inspiration
then
as well.
it's funny you say that because I mean I've been to Bastrop, which is where the gas station is, and of course the bridge. A lot of what was shot in that movie is out there, and I think next month they're actually doing the 50th anniversary here in here locally. So they're having a few guests, and I'll be fortunate to do the panel, man. So I'll be able to talk to these guests and throw in a few questions. And I was born in '74, so I'll throw my age out there. People already know I turned 50 this year, and it's just like for me that movie has always been relevant. I'm like, dude, like not so much that it was meant to be, but I was like, you know what, man, like it's a great film. I was born that same year, so it's coincidence. I don't know. We'll see. We'll
No, no,
see.
no. It's these things happen for a reason. I'm also 50 this year, so I was
Oh,
born the same
nice,
year as
man.
you. And yeah, it's I've done a few pilgrimages to America for horror. I went to the Monroeville Mall because I'm a huge George Romero fan, and I wanted to go to Pittsburgh and pay my respects. And I also went to Bangor to do a little Stephen King pilgrimage, and I went to like they did a Stephen King tour, which was really cool. And they took you to all the sites. Yeah, it was like the guy who did it. I think he's retired now, but he was amazing and he knew his stuff. He used to run a Stephen King bookstore, back in the day that I had heard of. So yeah, I'm dedicated. I'm a horror film fan.
Yeah,
That's
bro.
my main passion. It's the reason why my last three books have been horror themed. One's been sci-fi horror. The new one's fantasy horror. The one you've got is pure horror. But yeah, totally. I love it, and yeah, one day I'll get to Texas.
No, no, for sure, man. I hope so, man. I mean, it's definitely a great state. I mean, there's a lot to see here. I mean, it's like I keep telling people, everybody's like, everybody wants to see the world, and I'm like, dude, I still haven't seen all of Texas. I'm still trying to take that in. So, but there's a lot of cool stuff, man. We're actually, me and my girl, we're actually planning to make a trip. There's an abandoned zoo it was abandoned like in the 1920s, and it's like a trail now, so you can go out there, and the lion cages are still up, and it's just I keep seeing images out there, and I'm like, man, I want to go. I want to go out there and just enjoy the site because it's been closed for years, and the town or the city wherever it's at, it's just they just turned it into a trail, so you go out there and walk around, and I just thought that was pretty cool. So I definitely want to do that. But I mean, when it comes to like rivers and lakes, there's so many hidden gems that a lot of people don't know about, and even here locally, I got people that live here in San Antonio, they usually, for the most part, they stay on their side of town, like whether it's on the far north or far, southwest or whatever. But it's like if you're not central, there's a lot of things you don't know. And I keep telling people like, yeah, I'm gonna go to this park or this, and they don't know. They look it up and they're like, man, I didn't realize it was there like the whole time. And it's just the little gems that are out here, but a lot of history. I mean, of course, it's just a lot to see and a lot to do. So if you come down here, you probably need like about a month worth to enjoy a lot of these sites. But it'd be great, man. I mean, you definitely enjoy it for sure.
No, I hope to come. Just as a little side note to your story about the old abandoned zoo, you should get the book Creepers by David Morrell. He wrote Rambo: First Blood, and
Yeah.
Creepers is a book about like urban explorers going into like abandoned buildings and stuff. So that would be a
Oh
good book
man.
to read when you're doing that trail because it's on point. And it's a good book. It's a really good read.
No,
Um,
no, for sure, man. And I mean, I know my thing now is like I've been shooting some video. Nothing, I'm not a movie maker or anything, but I've been kind of like trying to do little stories just to it's just like with like everybody else, we all have ideas and we got thoughts in our head, and I'm like, man, I want to see this, and it's just for me, I want to do it just because I want to see it, and it's not going to be like top quality. It's not going to theaters, but it's just like I want to put it out there and see what people think. But part of not part of the reason, but I've been wanting to go to that zoo. But another one is for me to go and shoot video and do little reels and do little, just to throw it out there because I don't know if you've ever seen that um, horror movie called Zombies.
Zombies,
Zombies. Zoo,
Zoom,
like ZOO.
Zombie. No, I haven't. No, I
And
haven't heard of
it's wacky, bro. Like I love it. I love horror comedy, and it's just like one of those. But if you see it, look it up after this, and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, because they got like a part two, and I'm like, I don't think that was necessary, but They got it out there, and it was good, man. I liked it. It was funny. It's just I laughed throughout the whole thing, but it's about zoo animals that get infected and they turn into zombies and they start attacking people, and so
Okay.
the whole abandoned thing. I was like, man, that'd be pretty cool, man, because it's kind of like what people say, you hear about ghosts, human ghosts, but I was like, dude, I wonder if there's any animal ghosts. I want to go out there and see an elephant ghost or something, and but yeah, no, I'm gonna have fun with it though, man. So definitely, I know if you come down here, I will say this. I mean, definitely do your homework as far as when it's gonna get cold, because when it gets hot, it gets hot, bro. I think it's like this week we're just starting to get up to I think it was like 100 degrees. They're thinking about the heat index factor being up to 105. So when it gets hot, it gets hot, bro. It's like freaking. I tell people it's like I think we're like right next to the sun at that point. But other than that, it's a great place, man. Great state.
Yeah, well, like I've always loved America. I've traveled around quite a few places, um, and yeah, I spent quite a bit of time when I was on my travels, and separately on just like I said, those holidays where I went specifically for a purpose. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to. Yeah, I'd love to get out there. So I will do my research, and I'm a winter man, so I'd probably come in October or something. So
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna say definitely after August, man, because even now we're in August now and it's still hot. It's just sometimes we get those crazy weather patterns where it's like it snows out of nowhere, it freezes out of nowhere. We get rain for like a week, 2 weeks. It's just like I mean, here in San Antonio, we get our little storms here and there, man, and some of them are pretty bad. But like towards the coast, like Houston, Dallas up north, they get hit pretty bad when it comes to the cold. I mean, they freeze and it's just like snowed in and all that stuff, man. Like here, if we get we get snow. It's a freak accident, dude. It just doesn't happen, But we get cold though. But I agree with you though. I definitely prefer the cold too, man.
yeah, you can always wear more clothes when it's cold.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
it's too hot, there's just nothing you can do. It's
Can't
just
walk around naked, brother.
no, precisely.
It's like I mean, this is minimal. Wear shorts and a shirt, and you're still hot. But yeah,
No,
man. But let me ask you. I mean, outside of riding, man. I mean, what all do you do out there? Because I think I had looked up. I mean, as far as like you said, like the what was it? The Fright Fest that you guys have, or
yeah.
now?
Um, yeah, so I'm just like a big movie fan. I'm a big gamer. I'm a big reader. I love comics. I'm totally obsessed with
Nice.
comics. So you know, at the moment, I'm kind of probably just spending too much time following my hobbies. But
Why
there's
not,
reasons for
brother?
that. But yes, I mean, in terms of I mainly worked in the care industry with elderly people or people with
Okay.
learning disabilities. I was also a tutor, an assessor. I don't know whether you have those in America, but someone who helps people get qualified in care work. So
Oh, okay, okay.
that's my main profession. Unfortunately, since COVID, I haven't been able to do that because I'm a little bit. I got a lot of anxiety during COVID. Yeah, I think just because everybody kept telling me, like the government and everybody was like, you're really at risk." So I
Yeah.
kind of believe them, and yeah, so I've been
You
working
may
through
or may
that.
not die. You're like, okay.
Yeah, precisely. You get told that often enough, you'll believe it. So yeah, I'm better now, and yeah, I need to find something else to do because I'm probably still too germophobic to go back into care work.
Yeah.
But I definitely, would like to find something that I can maybe, still do the writing and, supplement that with something else.
No, no, for sure, man. And of course, I mean, every time people bring up COVID, man, because when it started, the people that were infected were brought here to San Antonio, the Lackland Air Force Base, which is like half a mile behind me.
Right.
And of course, that's when that lady went. I don't know if you heard the story, but the ladies, they said they tested negative. So the lady went to the mall, and then they tried to look for her. They put on the news. They were looking for her because they were like, "Oh man, she's positive. She tested positive for COVID." So like that day, like literally from that day to the next, it was just like boom, like everything just went south, man. And they found the lady, they closed down the mall. The mall was closed. Like they had to like fumigate it and get it all cleaned up. And I mean, it was wild. It was crazy. It was crazy wild, dude. Because it's just like for me, I mean, I'm still a contract delivery driver. I deliver furniture, part time or when I can. But at that time, I was doing it full time. and it's just like the world just shut down. And for me, I stayed busy. You know, people were working from home. People were like bored buying furniture, and here I am delivering it. You know, but it was just like it was crazy. Like I was busy like every day. You know, it was nine to nine. You know, nonstop, and it's just I took it for what it was. You know, I was able to pay off a lot of stuff. You know, I know a lot of people suffered. A lot of people, you know, lost loved ones. I mean, so it was a mess. And you know, for those that did, you know, condolences, man, because it's just like, I mean, nobody expected it, you know. When it happened, and it's like, but when it comes to like to Texas, like for us, and it wasn't so much a joke, but it was like from one to the next, we were like, you know what, we're done, man. We got to get back to work. And as a state, like we did that, like the governor, everybody was just like, everybody go back to work tomorrow, because people were losing businesses were closing. I mean, it was wild. It was pretty bad, you know. And so for us here in Texas, it was just literally like we all just decided, like, yeah, that's it, that's enough, man. We got to keep going. And we just started, you know, everybody went back to work the next week, and then that was it. You know, everybody just kind of started rebuilding. And but yeah, dude, I mean, there was a lot of closed stores. It was just like a ghost town for the most part in a lot of places, you know. And you know, things got better. You know, it's just now I know it keeps creeping up, and people, oh, you know, it's still here, and it's you
Yeah, I
know,
mean,
turn into something else, and it's just like, well, man, I mean, I don't know, man. We'll see.
it was a huge event. And weirdly enough, I was watching a film the other day. It's called an Australian film called Squizzy Taylor, and it's about like Australia's version of Al Capone. And
Oh,
there was a scene in the film where these two guys were wearing face masks, and they were gangsters, and you were expecting them to rob somebody, and this guy who they were going to rob walks right up to them, and you're like, think I was thinking, well, why would you walk up to somebody wearing a face mask? And they ask him for a light, and he gives them a light and stops to talk to them, and then they mug him. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. No person would walk up to these two people who looked really like criminals.
yeah,
And then the next scene was the lead character was in a hospital coughing up blood, and it was about the Spanish flu, which was the pandemic that happened 100 years ago.
yeah,
And I'd never seen anything about the Span. I knew about the Spanish flu, but
yeah,
I'd never seen anything about it in a film. And they had like places where people were forced to go, and they'd breathe in like
yeah,
inhalant for their lungs. They were all ill together. Everybody was wearing a face mask, and it made me like, I was like, wow, like they lived through that exactly the same as we did. It was
yeah.
100 years ago. They were doing the same things, and yeah, it's like I, my personal experience aside, which was unique to me because I'd had some health problems, serious health issues when I was younger. So
Right.
that's why I got put in the shielding group, the furlough. But
No.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a massive trauma that we all experience together, and a huge life changing event. That, like, it's weird that it's over now, but I don't think it is over because I think it still
No,
affects
no.
how people think and feel. But it was really interesting watching this film because I'd never seen it on screen before, and this film's really good, by the way. It's like this really rare Australian cult film that nobody's ever heard of. But yeah, it was amazing to see. It was like living history that they'd recreated this thing that we then lived through in almost exactly the same way.
No, and what was the name of that movie? Because I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, Squizzy Taylor. It's
Squeeze the Table.
Australian gangster film, and the weird thing about it is it's really big budget. Like, it looks amazing. It's like a really prestige film, and nobody's. I found it on Tubi. I don't think in America that they show the same films on Tubi, although I know you have Tubi over there. But yeah, brilliant film. I love rare films like that. When I see a film that I've never heard of but looks like it's like something in my alley,
Yeah.
I was like, Australian gangster film set in the 1920s. Never heard of
Done.
it. Yeah, I was like, hell yeah. And for me, I can enjoy a film if it's got one person in who I recognize from another
Yeah.
film. So this film had, in the original Mad Max with Mel Gibson, his sidekick, his police buddy,
Yeah.
he's in this film, Squizzy Taylor.
Oh man. Okay.
I was like, hey, I recognize him. Yeah, it was good. I really rated that film. It's amazing.
No, man. You see, and it's funny you say that too, because I mean, when it comes to horror movies, like I purposely always look for international movies because there's a lot here locally, like in the U.S. that were made that I still haven't seen. But then, like one day, I was just like, man, I mean, I wonder if like other countries have movies that obviously that I've never seen. So I started like looking up Australian films. I mean, in the UK, I started looking up, I mean, just everywhere because I was just like, damn, And there was one from Australia that was called the Tunnel, I believe,
Right.
and that one was good, But yeah, that's why I was like, I'm definitely gonna look that one up because it's. I think the closest we get some international films here, and I mean, I think it was like Wolf's Creek. We've gotten God, I went blank, but there's other ones that were filmed out there in Australia, and I'm like, sometimes they just go international, but I mean, imagine the hundreds and hundreds that don't, and we just never hear of, But
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna look that one up though, man, because yeah, that sounds pretty amazing, man.
Lost films are, fascinating to me. And when I used to work at the cinema, we had to have a name badge, and you had to put your favorite film on the badge
Oh,
underneath your name, and everybody chose something mainstream. It's like Top Gun or
oh yeah,
Pretty Woman and stuff like that. And I chose Sleepaway Camp because I was like, if somebody comes up to me and they know what Sleepaway Camp is, then I'm gonna be friends with them
yeah. I
instantly.
was gonna say, you're gonna be like my new best
Yeah,
friend.
but most of them, I knew that most people wouldn't, and they'd be like, "What's that?" And then I could have the fun of telling them about it. But yeah, I'll give you a film you should check out, and your listeners. To me, it's the ultimate cult film. It's called Singapore Sling. Now you have to be careful because I know there's at least 3 films called Singapore
Oh
Sling,
man.
but this is the Greek version, and it's the most extreme like cult film you could possibly imagine.
Oh man.
It's kind of like horror, but it's a detective film. It's a film noir. It's black and white. It's in
Oh
Greek.
nice.
It's got an
Yeah,
American actress in though, so some of it's in English. But it's amazing. And if you love film and you haven't seen that film, then I say you
nice.
need to rectify that because Singapore Sling is genius level filmmaking that most people never ever heard of.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I mean, I've never heard of it.
yeah, but there's reasons for that because it's pretty extreme. But it's yeah. I mean, to me, that's what cinema is. Like, I like mainstream films. I can go and see, your big budget Hollywood stuff. But my love is films that most people don't normally know about or like. And yeah, I love cinema so much.
No, no, I agree, man. Because even then, I mean, growing up, I mean, for us, I mean, as kids, of course, we had TV. I mean, it wasn't like now where we can do stuff like this. We can go live, we can take a picture, put it digital, and it goes everywhere like in seconds. Back, growing up, especially now that I know we're both 50, man. I mean, it's just like growing up and having to go develop film, waiting a couple weeks for it to come back. Writing a letter, waiting 2-3 weeks to come. I used to have pen pals in the UK. I used to have pen pals in Germany. I used to have, and man, I mean, writing a letter and hearing from them like a month and a half later, like it was wild. But it's like we didn't sit around and wait. We just when we got it, and we just kept going. But it's crazy. It's like the world's changed, and for the best. I would say, but because of that, there's always like we talked about scammers earlier. There's so much stuff out there that's dangerous, stealing our identity or our money, or it's just got to be careful and protect what you got, man.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I used to like writing letters too. I'm old school. I still prefer the old ways. I would, you know, I'm not really a fan of technology. I'll use it and I'm abreast of it, but at the same time, to me, like you say, the joy of getting, when somebody wrote you a letter, that meant that they spent money buying a stamp, that they
Going
cared
out of the
enough
way.
to give your time. That to me was proper friendship. And
Yeah.
I call Facebook anti-social media because it doesn't make people sociable.
No.
You can communicate for free at any point of the day, and most
Yeah.
people don't bother. But yeah, it's to be a writer, to get my stuff out. There's no way I could do it without being on social media.
Yeah.
It is important, but it's like all things. It's like you know, I don't know whether you've heard, but in the UK at the moment, we're having a lot of riots because of various stuff that's been
Oh
put
yeah.
out on social
Political.
media, which isn't true. But it's like it's all kicking off, and it's like to me, social media allows that.
Yeah.
It allows that kind of misinformation, which is
Yeah.
bad. But for me, I use it because I have to, but I use it responsibly. It's just the way it is.
No, no, yeah. I mean, and it's one of those things. Like if people are gonna hit on something, everybody can hate easily because they go, oh yeah, I'm with them. I support this or I'm against that. But yeah, man, it's just, I mean, for me, when it comes to the news and what's going on, I mean, I used to watch. I mean, growing up, I mean, I'm here in San Antonio. I'm a first generation, Mexican American. We grew up watching Spanish, news from Mexico all the way to South, and everything was raw, man. Like we're here we are as kids watching the news, and you see people walking around with holding their eye, blood. I mean, they showed everything. There was no censorship, right? And so it was like I grew up with that open mind, I guess, because it's just like I already expect, people. The news will make it look pretty or make it look, and hey, yeah, this is what's going on, and it's just a lot of it's trash. It's not real. They make it up. I mean, they get caught so many times. Them shooting different areas, different crowds, just to make it look like, oh yeah, there's a riot here or this is going on, and it's like, now with social media, a lot of people point it out and they do homework and they're like, dude, that's the same scene they did like 5 years ago at this location, and I mean, it's just, I don't believe everything I see. I mean, I listen to what's going on, but I don't, I don't jump into conclusions and like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna hate that person now because they did this. I mean, it's just like do your homework, just like everything else. Do your homework, and when it comes to politics or whatever, you're gonna vote for whoever, and that's that. It doesn't stop there. It's like. I mean, here, like, I mean, when it comes to the presidency, of course, every 4 years, and it's like, even then, that's too long. I don't want to say it's too long, but it's just like it's like there's only so much they can do in 4 years, and it's like, is it even worth it? Because you know what I mean. Like, it's like, I mean, I personally feel it should be longer, but at the same time, there's a lot of things as an American or as a taxpayer now and a homeowner that I'm like, okay, now I'm looking at numbers. Now I'm looking at not just today, but like in 5 years, as far as house value, my taxes, where they're going to go. I'm an adult, right? So now I got to look at all that stuff. But I mean, it's just like before I didn't care, it's just like, it was what it was. But now I'm looking out for who's going to take care of me in a few years, after their 4 years. Like, I mean, I'm looking 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, no, it's just it's kind of crazy because we look at from a UK perspective, the American system. It seems like you can only run to be president if you have huge financial resources, whereas in England it's slightly different. That you can you can kind of get elected out of nowhere. Just you don't. It's not based on money so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are crazy times we're living in. That's for sure. I guess that's good for being a writer. Also for being a podcast host because it gives you plenty to talk about.
No, no, for sure, man. And I was gonna say too, and I mean, I'll get off politics because I mean, it's not really, but when it comes to money, yeah, because a lot of it here, people joke about it on social media, and they're like, man, all these politicians should be like NASCAR drivers. They should put their sponsors out. We know who we're voting for, who's giving them money, because a lot of times it's like, oh, secret, donations, and it's just like at the end of the day, it's like pharmaceutical, it's a gun, ammo, it's gun, companies. There's people that, businesses that are making money because, of course, they throw money here, and of course they're gonna help them make money at the end. It's a scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. And but it's wild though, man, because I mean, even and I won't even mention names because I don't want people to, they can decide whoever. But it's like when they raise so much money and they're raising like billions for their campaign, and I'm thinking, okay, like where are these people, these politicians at when we need money to fix
Yeah.
home, fix our country, fix our economic system, and fix bigger things, rather than, hey, I raised so many money so I can run and get elected. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's backwards, because it's like, yeah, you're right. It's, whoever raises the most money wins at the end, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just an interesting perspective, let's just say, just from an outsider's viewpoint, because it's not like that here. I'm not saying it's better here.
Yeah.
It's just different. That it's about parties and about I don't know, maybe they need to have a budget cap like they have in American football.
No, no. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of budgets. There should be an age limit. There should be, like, I mean,
Yeah.
literally, because it's like, we got people that are of age or older running our country, or it's presidential elect or whatever. They don't really run anything; they're puppets. But it's just at the same time, it's like, man, like who are these people in Congress? You watch TV, we watch the news, and half of them are asleep. They're old, man. They can't even stay up. And it's like, and this is where our laws are being made. This is where our constitution is being, what I mean, regulation. And I'm like, dude, like these people don't even care, man. They're just collecting money and doing life, man. But I mean, yeah, I mean, there should be an age limit. There should be a limit on funds. There should be, put them on minimum wage, man. Let them work for 20 an hour. That's not even minimum wage, but it's like, I mean, shoot, even at 20 and up, I mean, we're still struggling, man.
Yeah, well, we have to take a driving test to be able to drive a car, but you don't have to do anything like that to be president.
There you go. I like that. I'm gonna use that one, brother. Hell yeah, yeah. I mean, that's true, man. That's true. But yeah, man. But you know what? I mean, you're saying anybody out there can get elected, man. So how do I vote for you, man? I'm gonna put you out there in power, brother. Let's get that going, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can work two ways, because in Ukraine, when President Zelensky was elected, and I think he used to be an actor and a stand-up comedian. And I was like, well, why on earth would you vote for somebody like that? He's got no experience in politics. But actually, life events have made him step up, and he's doing a great job protecting his country. So yeah, there's no rules to it. You don't have to have been a politician all your life to be a good politician. But yeah, I totally agree. You need an age limit. There needs to be some sort of competency test, and it's the most important job in the world, I guess. So
yeah. I mean, we've had a Ronald Reagan, he was an actor, I mean, he ran, he got elected, we had, I mean, Donald Trump, I mean, of course he's running again, but, businessman making his millions and living off tax money. I mean, I won't even go there, but it's just, we've had people, one of the things too, man, because I cover combat sports, and, I tell people, I say, man, I mean, a lot of people don't know that at one point, like, Donald Trump and Mark Cuban were partners in an affliction MMA, which is a combat sport, So, I mean, he's real good friends. That's no secret, real good friends with Dana White when it comes to the UFC. He's always out there hanging out. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just, I mean, we'll see. As a country here, man, I mean, we'll see what we are in a few years. And like I said, I always look at the end result. I don't look at now. It's just, I look at what they've done, and yeah, see if they're going to start moving things or getting stuff done, because they can tell you 100 things, and then in 4 years they'll be getting done with half of one. It's just a lot of these things don't happen, man. But yeah, bro. But let me ask you. I mean, of course, other than I mean, of course, hoping you run for office out there, man. I mean, music, man. What kind of music? Let me ask you. At 50 years old, man, what do you listen to, bro?
I listen to all the stuff I grew up with.
Nice.
My favorite band is Anthrax.
Oh, sweet, bro.
Yeah, I'm big into metal, MOD, Suicidal Tendencies.
Nice.
Yeah, Pantera. I was lucky enough to see Nirvana's last ever gig in England when they played the Reading Festival. That's always something that you can still get a little bit of cachet out of nowadays, because people still love that band. But yeah, I grew up in, obviously it's an issue. I grew up in the 70s. I was too young, so I was listening to my brother's music, which was kind of punk. And then obviously I transitioned into hard rock, and then I got into metal when I was a teenager. Nice. And yeah, I love music. Music's it's something that's always in my life, but I'm not studious about it in the same way I am with film. I can walk in a room, and if a film's on TV, I can normally instantly tell you what the film is, just because I'll know the actor or I'll know the combination or whatever. Something, that I study film. I read it constantly. But yeah, with music, I'm kind of stuck in. I don't really follow new music, but I like what I liked.
Are they still making new music? I stopped listening like back in the 2005, bro. After that, I mean, but yeah.
But yeah, England obviously had a great metal scene, and we had some really big bands when I was growing up. Although I didn't actually like English bands as much. I was much more into American metal. But obviously we had Sabbath and Iron Maiden, which when I was growing up were absolutely huge. Yeah. Def Leppard, Judas Priest. We had a good, kind of showing, but I wasn't interested in any of those bands. And when I was younger, there used to be a small club in Bristol, which is 40 miles up the road, and I used to go gigging there, and we saw some amazing bands like Soundgarden, Love Hate. And yeah, I was lucky because it was a good time to grow up. And yeah, just yeah, music's amazing. I'm with my health problems, you know, I used to be like I'd be in the pit and I'd be moshing around, and now I can't do that. So I don't like going to gigs quite so much nowadays because I want to still be in there, but I have to step out, and I don't like watching gigs sat down, basically. But yeah, no, music's hugely important to me. Yeah,
Let
I've
me
got
let me grab these real quick, man, because I think I still have them out here. But like for me, like growing up, dude, I mean, I it's ironic that you say you used to listen to a lot of like American, when it came to music. But I mean, I used to like late '80s, early '90s, and even now, like I still listen to a lot of English music.
okay.
Well, I still listen to like the Business. I still listen to Last Resort. I mean, it comes to ska, Jamaican. The Specials, Madness. That's the stuff that I grew up listening to out here, man. So that's funny. It's like I mean, you're out there trying to get our get stuff from out here, and we're over here. Like I at one point I used to distribute vinyl because it was like here in San Antonio. We've always been behind on times when it came to fashion, it came to music. And for some reason, we weren't like hip to everything that was going on, But I used to have an underground like a magazine, a zine. I used to interview like a lot of punk bands and hardcore bands, and I befriended like record labels where they would send me vinyl, like boxes of vinyl, and I used to get rid of it. I used to sell it, and I kept a lot of it. I still have a lot of vinyl, man, and it's just like, but yeah, when it came to music, man, I mean, for me, I still listen to a lot of that the English, punk rock, English oi, Jamaican, I mean, of course, the whole roots, coming through to Jamaica, of course, to the I guess when it comes to England in general. I mean, I know there were certain areas that were more inhabited by I guess it's safe to say immigrants. Back when. I mean, of course, everybody migrated out there, but yeah, that's cool,
Yeah.
man. I like that, bro. So definitely, we'll have to trade cassette tapes or something one day, man.
Oh, it's funny you say about doing a zine because I tried to do a zine when I was at university, and I still have all my paper mock-ups, but I never actually printed it.
Oh man, bro.
Even but my zine was going to be called Eclectic Tastes because it was
Oh,
like my love of everything. So I could go and watch Rick Wakeman, who was in Yes and played with David Bowie, do a gig at Winchester Cathedral, but then I'd be in the pit and I'd be, I remember I was I was gigging once, and I think it was Love Hate in Bristol, and the pit was so insane. It was so hot and like just violent. And I walked off to the side and I was sick on someone's shoes, and I apologized and I went back in the pit. But I
yeah.
felt instantly better. But it was just the heat and the overload of the bodies. So yeah, I can appreciate totally different types of music. Like I like classical music, but my favorite, yeah, was always metal. And I think your love of stuff that was English and my love of stuff that was American was probably because you gravitate to what's rare and you
Yeah.
gravitate to what's hard to find. And if you grew up loving horror films in the
Oh,
80s, some of those films were impossible to find. You'd only read about them in magazines. They weren't released in your country.
yeah.
And in England, we had censorship as well. So some films were banned, so we couldn't see them at all. So, you gravitate to what you can't have. That's always the forbidden fruit. You want to,
No, yeah, that's
yeah, you
true.
want
That's
to, and
true.
when you find it, you're the person who finds some musical amazingness from another country, you feel on top of the world. And again, you say about technology and how it changes, that's one thing that children nowadays will never ever have again.
Oh
That
yeah.
feeling of finding something that you've been looking for years. Because if you want to go and find a rare comic, you go to eBay and you can have it in a day. You
Oh
might
yeah.
have to pay $100 for it because it's rare. There might only be 500 of those comics printed. But back in the day, I would literally spend years. I had a list in my wallet of comics that I needed that I couldn't find, and there was no way of getting them unless you went to the shop. So I think we had it better. I don't want to be one of those old guys who's like, "Oh yeah, it's better in my day." But the
I know.
thrill,
Then
the
back
thrill
in
of
my day, I
finding
used
stuff.
to so that
Yeah,
we used to have to walk barefooted, but forward and back, get the music we wanted, right? I mean, through
yeah,
cold
but
and everything else. But that's true, man, and it's true. I mean, it's just I mean, it was underground. I mean, for when it comes to punk rock, I mean, here, I mean, listening to vinyl, for the most part, and even then, I think back then we used to have a lot of recordings on tapes because we couldn't find a vinyl. It's like somebody somewhere had buying a record. They made a crappy recording, and here we are with crappy recordings on cassettes. Like, but it was wild, man. I mean, it's definitely we're young, and I mean, when it comes to music, and I was going to say this earlier because you said you brought up Suicidal Tendencies, and I've seen them play here like maybe 3 or 4 times, man. They come through here through San Antonio quite a bit, but there's a lot of bands. Anthrax was here like last year. They came through here. I mean, all these good bands, bro. Like, I mean, when it comes to, let me ask you this. I mean, vinyl itself was pretty hard back then. What about shirts, man? Did you guys used to be able to get like clothing pretty easily?
Only from going to gigs. So there wasn't many shops that were selling, like, I guess in America you have Hot Topic and stuff. So that stuff is now mainstream. But back in the day, no, you had to go to a gig to get a band t-shirt. I remember there was a band called Mind Funk, although that was the light version of their name. I don't know whether we can swear on your show, but they kind of like hit at the wrong time because they were kind of, it's hard to describe them, but they're Soundgarden-ish, but they kind of hit when Nirvana hit big, and so that kind of metal scene wasn't as popular. But they were a great band, and my friend had a cap with Mind Funk, the rude version, written on it, and he just wore that for years. And then I got myself a Suicidal Tendencies cap from a gig, and I just wore that for years as well. So yeah, no, hard to get shirts. But
I have an original Suicidal Tendencies, a hat and a jacket from the early '90s, bro. And that one I got through a buddy of mine that had it, and he was just like, "Man, if you want it," I'm like, "Hell yeah, dude!" Like, I was like, "Shoot, I didn't have one when they were like hitting big, or I mean, when I wanted one, I didn't have one, but I was like, I got one now, But man, but that's cool, bro. And I mean, I can definitely appreciate that. And I was gonna say too, I mean, you said now it's easier to find, and I'll put it like this, man, because for me, like when I go to these events, of course, I go to horror events, and everybody's got horror related items, which is great. It's a lot of self-made. A lot of these people work on different grabs, whether stickers, patches, shirts. But like for me, I get a chuckle when I see like here. I just saw an ad earlier, and it was this store called I forgot the name of the damn store, but it's like everywhere, and it's like they're selling all these horror shirts. And I was like, man, like it kind of dilutes it, because Halloween's coming, so everybody's trying to make that money, and not now everybody like starting now, like everybody's having horror shirts, and some of them are pretty cool, man. I'm not gonna lie. If somebody gave me one, I definitely keep it, but I don't want to go out there and support that. I want to support like the vendors that are out there like all year round. It's like horror is year round for me, man. It's not just Halloween. It's just like those that are buying them, great, cool. I'm sure they're cheap. They sell them really cheap, make them real cheap or whatnot. But for me, I want to go after like the stuff that you still can't find, because that still drives me. That's still what keeps me going. It's like I don't want to have a shirt and like 100 other people have it. I'm like, nah, man, I want the shirt that nobody has, bro. Like, that's what I want.
Well, that's why I wore my Fright Rags Evil Dead 2 hoodie here, because I had to import this obviously from America, and it cost me loads of money. But at the same time, I knew that it was highly unlikely that many other people in England would buy this. But Fright Rags have always been a good company. I mean, to me, I mean, I always used to like to mix it up. So I went to see Pantera support Megadeth, and I went wearing a Sylvester Cat t-shirt, Tweety Pie, Sylvester. And I used to get so much hassle from metal fans because I was like deliberately not wearing metal clothing. And I'm like, look, I'm here. I love metal, but I don't want to look like you. You all look the same because you're all wearing metal stuff. And I like to mix it up. But it was funny because I was lifting my friend up onto the crowd surfing.
Yeah.
And as I lifted him, he kicked me in the mouth.
Oh.
I bit through my tongue. And I was bleeding all over the place. And my friends were like, you got to go and see a doctor. And I didn't want to leave the gig because this is like the gig of the year, like Pantera and Megadeth. And Pantera were just blowing up. So they were still the support band, but they were huge. And anyway, finally, it was getting so bad and I was bleeding everywhere. I had to go to the thing. And they said, oh, you got to go to hospital. I was like, no, man, I don't want to go to hospital. They gave me something. They put this padding in my mouth, which I had to chomp on. And I went back and it was just still bleeding. And they're like, no, you have to go to hospital. So weirdly enough, they took me backstage and to get to the ambulance. And I met Phil Anselmo and some of the members of Pantera who finished their gig. And all they said to me was, man, what is that T-shirt you're wearing?" Like I was like, "Oh man, like what?"
You're like, "What about my tongue?" You're like, "Shit,
Yeah,
I'm
precisely. I
bleeding
didn't
for
get
you guys, man."
I
Dude,
just,
that's funny, bro. That's funny. But yeah,
I
I
just
can
know.
definitely see that, man.
Yeah, it's like the only time that I've ever met anybody really famous in the metal scene, and I'm wearing a Sylvester T-shirt that they just.
Yeah.
But I don't
Dude,
mind. That was funny, and yeah, it
yeah.
was crazy. It was a crazy gig. I went to the hospital, and then I got a taxi back, and I just managed to catch the end of Megadeth. So
Damn, bro, that's crazy. That's wild. I mean, but that's funny because at the same time, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna remember that because who else was wearing a Sylvester shirt, right?
precisely, yeah.
So they're gonna be like, "Yeah, that was that guy wearing his shirt, man." Like, dude, that's crazy. That's funny, bro. I like that. But man, bro, I mean, dude, I mean, I brought you on here, man, and of course, I mean, when it comes to work, where can people find your workout?
Okay, so if you go to Drive Through RPG, just search Drive Through RPG. That's a book selling site that's primarily focused on role playing games and obviously game books like mine. If you go in there and you search JK Game Books, then you'll find my stuff. If you go on Facebook and you search The Green Apocalypse, which is the title of this book,
Yes.
then you'll find my group. I've got a Facebook game book group, which tells you about all my books. And my latest Kickstarter, I should have written this down. It's a bit hard to pronounce, but it's called The Flesh Thieves of Karnath Taff. And it's basically a fantasy horror where, as a child, various chunks of flesh were cut out of your body, and nobody else survived this process except for you. So you start the adventure deciding whether or not you want to go and get your chunks of flesh back. It sounds totally disgusting, but
Wow.
within the game book, it gives you this amazing thing. Because if you collect your cubes of flesh, you can then decide what to do with them. Because if you put them back in your body, then they give you sort of special powers,
Yeah.
which makes the adventure easier. But equally, bad stuff starts happening if you put these things back in your body. It's not meant to happen. So it's a kind of sick idea, but I think as a game book, it's really good because it gives you moral choices.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's on Kickstarter. You can look that up, Karnath Taff.
Nice, brother. Well, Brand, I mean, we'll definitely have to bring you back on here, man. I mean, it was definitely great talking to you. We're going to be in touch. I thank you for jumping on here. First of all, your time's always appreciated. For those out there, of course, make sure and follow up. I'm going to be posting the links on the video so that way people can follow you. Till next time, as always,
Thanks,
thank
man.
you for jumping on here. Everybody out there, of course, Spider here, Jonathan, Kelly, my man, thank you. Till next